So, welcome to the Kickass Midlife Method podcast. And I'm joined this evening by some women in the community. And we're talking about what happens after you've lost body fat. So, your maintenance, what is reverse dieting? Because you may or may not have heard that slogan being bandied around, and building a body that doesn't actually rebuild doesn't rebound in midlife after you've lost weight. Because as women of 45, 50 plus, we've all been brought up in the narrative where it's all about losing weight and then nobody thinks about anything afterwards, other than probably from many of your experiences, if you've spent many years dieting, of it all just coming back again. So we're going to talk about that. So why midlife women can regain fat after dieting, what's happening there, how you increase calories without losing control, what maintenance is, what it actually looks like, reverse dieting, yeah, useful or overhyped, what it is, and how to build muscle without adding body fat and what to focus on once you're kind of there. So give me a two in the chat if you are someone that has always tended to, when you've lost weight, rebounded straight back on and put it back on again. Yeah, I mean, you probably wouldn't be doing my program if that wasn't an issue. And who gets scared of like what happens next? Who gets scared after losing weight of what will happen next after you've achieved this fat loss? Yeah. Okay. So let's delve into this. Let me get Jane in. So this is what most women do, which is probably really you're probably really familiar with. You diet, you lose weight, you stop dieting, and then you go back to exactly how you were eating before, panic, and it all regains, and you just feel like, oh, just it's me. I'm just stuck. I can't seem to do anything. So you stay stuck. You either overeat, low energy, soft body, no progress. So, what I want you to really get your head around is fat loss is not the end goal. That's only the midpoint stop. It's the halfway along the journey. So, if you don't have that in your mind already, you'll go straight back to it. So, I want you to be thinking about fat loss is not my end goal. So, what happens when you reach your body fat loss? And some of you are kind of nearing that already. Some of you I have put on maintenance in the meantime. So, maintenance really means if you, as you all know, your weight now. So, your weight dictates how much energy you need. So, when you're at maintenance, so say you've started at 70 kilos and you're at 60 kilos, then obviously your 60 kilo body requires less energy, less calories than your 70 kilo body. So therefore, when you panic about, oh, how can I eat less when I go back to not trying to lose weight, your body actually is smaller, so therefore it doesn't need as much. So your kind of calories in will change as your weight decreases. So maintenance is to maintain your body weight. So most people freak out because they go, but that's more than I'm on when I was losing body fat. So it means I'm going to put on weight. You won't put on weight because you will maintain the weight that you are whenever we put you back on maintenance. So it's not that you're having more calories than your body needs, you're having exactly what your body needs for that current weight. Um, so it's really important to fuel your training. It supports your hormones and your brain, energy, mood, cognition, all of that. So it is not, maintenance is not eating whatever you want, going back to thinking there's a kind of before like a way of eating when you're losing body fat and then something different when you're not on that. Because actually, what many of you should start to have realized or begun to appreciate the food that you're eating now and enjoying it and not think, oh, there's a diet food and a non-diet food, because there isn't. There is like only what you eat that nourishes you, that is enjoyable, tastes nice, and that's all that there is really. So I've had lots of women leave the program saying that actually they can't believe the food that they eat is things that they'd choose in a restaurant and they're now cooking, and uh, that's day-to-day reality. So why adding calories feels scary is obviously you're worried that you put it back on, that you'll lose control, that you've been there before. That's what happened. So a small calorie increase does not equal fat gain, particularly when, as I say, it's specific to your energy requirements. Um, you might see on maintenance, and some of you might have seen it over the weekend, that maybe the number on the scale increases. That's not body fat. That is if it's a tiny bit. So some of you go into like complete spirals when there's a kind of zero point 0.2 kilos of weight on your scales gone up. If you've done over the weekend and you've had more carbohydrates, which means more glycogen, more water, because you've had a more saltier food, so you have a bit more water in there, your scales will increase a little bit, which is why I'm always banging on to everybody, please do your measurements, your waist and your hip and your chest, because that's why we do them, because the scales are a kind of a tool for us to give you a kind of nutritional intake, but they're a blunt tool. So we use all these other things as well, your photographs, your waist and your hips. So fat gain only happens with a sustained surplus over days and weeks. So a bit like many of you came onto this program going, I don't really know what happened. I've suddenly put on weight over 2 years. It's just that sustained increase in what you're eating without realizing that's caused fat gain. So, how to move to maintenance? Now, some of you aren't there yet. Some of you, I sometimes will put you on maintenance just to give you a bit of a break. And I think it's quite good for your mindset to be able to have that perspective of what should my plate look like just to maintain. So it's a really good mindset tool as well. So you'd add 100, 200 calories per day, like really small controlled increase. Now, most of you in this program, we don't give you massive deficits because it's not conducive in midlife to sustained fat loss, and you'll lose muscle. So most of you, when you come back on, you're only actually having decreased about 250 calories, 500 calories at the most per day. So it's not a huge amount. So therefore, coming back into maintenance is not that big a deal, but you've got to trust it. I've had a few of you, when I've put you on maintenance, really freak out and think that you're going to put on weight. You have to trust the process. You won't put on weight if you stay at maintenance. If, for instance, you are someone that gets anxious about it, what we would do is think about giving you, holding it for 1 to 2 weeks at 100, then add another 100, so you can actually see and gain mental confidence, psychological confidence in that process as we go back. As with everything, you're tracking trends, not like day to day. So if any of you are tracking like literally day to day scales, try not to just think about it as weeks, every weekly review, and so that you're taking in the whole of the week, not kind of day to day. And then we repeat until that kind of weight stabilizes. So your goal is to just land at that exact maintenance. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. So what maintenance can look like so that you don't freak out. Your weight will fluctuate slightly between, zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.5 kilos. It's totally normal. That doesn't mean, oh my God, I've messed it up. I might as well just eat rubbish again because I've messed it up and it's all a failure. It's normal. So don't freak. Your energy, for instance, if you've been on a 500 calorie deficit, which some of you are at the moment, maybe a little bit more, and then you come back to maintenance, you will probably, without realizing it, think, oh, actually, I feel more energized, I feel more awake. And that's because you just got more calories again. You should find that your training performance lifts. So you should actually start being able to lift heavier because you've got more energy, more food. And if you're on a big deficit and you're slightly always thinking about food, that will stabilize and you won't be thinking about that. Although, as I say, most of you in the Kickass Midlife Method program, we don't put you on big deficits. So you shouldn't really be in a state where you're thinking, I'm hungry. So this is where body confidence actually starts. So it's not the body fat loss stage because that's just almost the first stop. So actually the end of the line is when we are at maintenance and then I'm going to just go into a little bit more about where we go from here. So, have any of you heard the term reverse dieting? Yes or no in the chat? Well, this might confuse you, and I've thrown it in there because no, okay. I want you to ignore reverse dieting, but I'm going to explain what it is. I thought I'd throw it in there because it's around everywhere, so I didn't want you to get confused about it. But reverse dieting is something that comes around with bodybuilding. So you'll hear a lot of bodybuilders use it because when bodybuilders go for their shows, they cut to their literally the day before a show, like 400, 500 calories a day. And so reverse dieting, they have to be really careful because otherwise they get rapid weight gain. If you see anyone on Instagram that's done a bikini show or anything like that with bodybuilding, you'll see that sometimes they are literally just eating biscuits as soon as they come off because obviously they basically starve themselves in order to get into shape for the actual thing. So that's what reverse dieting is. Their metabolism slowed down, so they have to be really careful and reverse it really, really slowly. Otherwise, they'll get rapid fat gain. So I put that in there because I thought some of you might want to know what it is or might have heard of it, but you don't need to do it. So as I said, we have a really sustained deficit when you lose body fat. So you don't need to worry about it at all. But that's what reverse dieting is, if you wanted to know. So what happens next? After your maintenance, and it might be that you decide to stay at maintenance, where you have slow body recomposition, you're still losing body fat, still gaining muscle slowly, it's gradual but sustainable. Or what we would do, and some of you are on this already because you're in a performance phase, and for most of the people we have in Kickass at the moment who are on performance phase are of performance for cycling or running. But you can also, and we've had some women in the program do this, increase their calories specifically around changing shape more and increasing their muscle mass. So again, I don't want anybody on this call or listening in afterwards thinking, oh my God, that means I'm going to turn into a bodybuilder. Because as I think most of you know in this program now, it is extremely difficult to put on muscle. So even in increasing calories, it'd still be really hard. So you're not going to suddenly bulk up like a CrossFit athlete or a bodybuilder. It just won't happen, but you will get much more definition. So what happens after maintenance, if you decided to do that, is we increase your calories over your maintenance. And again, in fact, Kirsty, is she here? So Kirsty has done this and her shape, maybe we can ask her if she minds. I'll ask her if she minds sharing any photographs. So we increased hers above her maintenance. She hasn't put on any weight and her shape's changed even more. So you build muscle faster, you'll feel more fueled, you'll just feel more able to lift much heavier. And then we go back down to maintenance. So you'll get that real definition, much more definition, and a much more sense of empowerment because you'll suddenly see the difference that fueling correctly makes to what you can achieve. So to eat to build muscle, same thing as we've done for a deficit, 150, 300 calories more, maybe 500 at the most over what your maintenance is, because you're obviously needing to use more fuel in order to lift heavier. So your protein becomes even, I mean, your protein is non-negotiable anyway, but it's even more important. You can't kind of mess about with your protein when you're in a muscle building phase. You've got to make sure you get that in. Carbohydrate, fueling performance in the gym, supports recovery, and really dialing in your progressive overload. So some of you in your, not some of you, I've just seen a couple, so I haven't seen it all fully yet, but I've seen a couple of people still with their progressive overload where they've done set one, set two, set three, all of the same weight. You like progressive overload. Set one is one way. If you hit that, set two is a different way. Set three is another way. So that's progressive overload. And if you're not doing that, you're not progressively overloading properly. So if you're going to build muscle, you have to dial in that mental mindset that you have to lift heavier each time progressively, not as heavy as you can. It's not like lift lift the heaviest thing you can. It's progressively increasing until you reach failure, until you cannot literally lift it without going halfway and thinking, no, I've failed in that lift because my muscles won't support. That's progressive overload. So what you get with that is your weight may even increase because that is when you might put on weight with muscle, but your size will look smaller. So when sometimes you hear people at the beginning of a body fat phase start exercising and go, oh, I've put on weight, it must be because I'm building a muscle. I'm afraid it's not. When you get to that phase, it's only when you're really progressively overloading that you might be adding muscle. But you have to be really careful not to gain the fat. So again, as I say, you have to be careful that you actually are progressively overloading. Keep some level of tracking when you're doing this. Are you eating 1 to 300, 500 more calories, or have you actually gone over that because you're like, hey, it's really exciting. I can eat more because I'm training. Making sure you're training with that intent and monitor again, same thing, monitor your trends weekly. Watch for any rapid weight gain, look at your photographs, make sure that you can see that definition and it isn't just a case of I'm just eating more, putting on more body fat and not really dialing in that progressive overload. Um, and then when you cut again, so again, I don't know whether you've heard the word cut. You'll hear that bandied around a lot on Instagram. So a short cut is when you just cut your calories a little bit more. So when you've built muscle, sometimes you might want to go back into a little mini cut to make sure that you haven't put on any more body fat when you were doing the lift phase. And then you would go back to a build again. So that's how you actually change shape long term. So you can see your body fat phase is station one. Your maintenance is kind of your station two, and that last on the line is your kind of muscle gain. And then you're going to go back. I suppose your last really is your maintenance again, but you're going to go body fat, maintenance to get used to what that feels like and looks like again when you're maintaining at the current weight that you've reached. Because that's the other thing, you can often hear, and that's none of you guys here, but sometimes women who have been very overweight lose weight and they still can't see that when they look at themselves. They still see themselves as a different shape. And same with food. If you're used to eating a certain amount, and then you go to maintenance, you kind of got to get your brain back into thinking, what does my food look like on a plate for maintenance? And that's really important to do. Yeah, so that identity shift, the end goal is, the old identity is which it has been for many women of our age. I'm trying to lose, I've got to lose weight. It's all about that, and that's the end goal. It's actually not. It's thinking about I'm building a strong, capable body, whether that's for life and actually the muscle build is because of that, or whether it's a performance thing. So for many of you, you might not think it now, but you might get to a stage where you think, actually, I wouldn't mind, as you've seen some of the people in the group who are doing running or cycling things. Sometimes that's a useful thing to do because it gives you the structure and it gets you involved in keeping on training for stuff and the experiences of training kind of sometimes can make it easier than just being like, oh, I'm doing this to build this amount of muscle. If you have this kind of framework of structure, I know myself, I do things that I definitely wouldn't be doing otherwise because I've got a race, and half of me sometimes is like, oh, got to do another marathon this weekend. But then I do it and I'm like, oh God, I really like it. So that kind of performance mindset after you've reached certain weight, and it could be a hike, it could be anything, can be helpful in helping you keep structure around your training, and it helps that momentum. So that's it. So thanks for joining for the Kickass Midlife Method on